Guys, this is Tina back in for another video. I just wanted to thank all the new subscribers again. I appreciate all the support, the likes, the views, all those things. I have this story today. It's like so crazy. It seems like it would be a book. I mean, it's just nuts. And I just wanted to also give you a quick disclosure that if you're sensitive, you might want to click away from this video because it does have a lot of adult situations in it. So you don't want your kiddos around to hear this, okay? I mean, obviously, you would never want them to hear about anything to do with, you know, what we talk about on these channels. In any event, the story is about Robert Limon and Sabrina Limon, okay? Both from California. I believe they met around 1998 or 1999. Sabrina was at that time 18 and Robert was 21. So when they met, I guess it was like immediate fireworks, and Sabrina was this beautiful blonde, Robert is a good-looking man, and they just and life of the party, and they just came when they got together, they were just like people envied them when they walked, when they walked around, or even their relationship seemed like they were just like, I guess the old expression would be like, the yin to the yang type thing. Like just like meant to be, but when you're young sometimes you feel that way. So Sabrina and Robert met and then they eventually got married and then they had children. Okay, so somewhere along the lines in the relationship, they decide to open the marriage. And this is said to be the idea from Robert, not from Sabrina, and that Sabrina supposedly went along with it because she wanted to make her husband happy. So what she does is, she has a friend named Kelly, and her friend's boyfriend's name is Jason. So apparently they would all get together, and the two women would be together supposedly as, possible, swingers. So, and then they would go and have, their romantic time with their husbands after the two women had their thing. You get what I'm trying to say here? Here on YouTube, we have to be careful of what we use as far as any type of, certain contents of certain nature. But we know what swingers do. So, well, most of us do. I mean, and that I've heard of it. Hey, I'm not judging here. I'm just telling the story. That's your lifestyle. Please don't think that I'm trying to disrespect you. To each their own. That's not for me. Great for you if that is for you, but it's just not for me. So anyway, Sabrina and Robert did get married. They had a couple of kids, and again, they opened their relationship. And so, supposedly, there was a situation where it was thought that Kelly, okay, so Robert is Sabrina's husband, Kelly is Sabrina's friend, okay? So it is said that Sabrina wanted to stop this type of behavior and she wanted to go back to being just married and being with just her husband. And apparently, Robert didn't stop. And it is said that possibly Sabrina and Robert had some kind of side thing going on anyway. So, and I think that in their, swinger code, that's like some of the rules that you don't break is to be intimate without your partner there with another. I don't know. It's just bizarre to me. But again, so Robert would continue to see Kelly, and he would come home to Sabrina, even knowing that this is not what she wanted, and tell her what Sabrina had just done to him and how gratifying it was for him and the things that she would do to him. And Sabrina would listen, and I can't imagine, like, well, this, see, for me, like, I don't think I could sit there and watch somebody that I cared about, loved, or be with someone else. That would just be too hard. That would hurt a lot. So apparently, in this case, I think like Sabrina was very hurt. I think I would feel the same way. I wouldn't have opened the relationship to begin with, but that's just me. So in any event, she tries to distract herself because at this point Sabrina and Robert had, built this life, and she was a suburban wife, and she had this reputation of being, this good, good wife, good person of the community. So what ends up happening is Sabrina takes a job at Costco, just apparently to distract her mind from, everything that's going on with Robert and her marriage, and, all the turmoil. So she's working part-time at Costco, and she meets a very young, handsome man, 22-year-old Jonathan Hearn. Was just very handsome, and also he was only 22 years old. So Sabrina was, I believe, at least 10 to 12 years older than him at the time. So he immediately falls for her, and the two of them start up a romantic relationship. So now let me just give you a little background on Jonathan. Jonathan Earn was raised, he was the way he was raised, he was homeschooled his entire life, but he was also very educated, and he was also very religious. So this will explain some things later. They have this relationship, and Sabrina complains to him, and she gets Jonathan kind of under her spell. And you know and now she's complaining about Robert. It did go to court. So apparently Sabrina had attempted to have, her and Jonathan, carry out some type of plan to get rid of her husband. She didn't want to divorce him. She didn't want divorce. She wanted him to, she would prefer that he died rather than divorce, which to me, that's crazy. I don't really understand why people do this. It's so stupid. Just divorce the person. Oh my God. So in any event, so they decide on poisoning first. On August 17th, 2014, Robert was at work at night, okay, at the railroad facility, and he worked the graveyard shift. So where Robert worked was in Tehachapi, California, and this was 85 miles away from his home. So wow, he drove a long way to work. And his home was in Hallandale, California. I guess that's where him and Sabrina resided at the time. So when Robert was working, someone came up and just shot him point blank in the head, and then went into the office that was nearby and ransacked the office, and then went back to Robert and apparently shot him again. And we know this because Jonathan does come out later and tell the story about how everything went down. So what happens is that after, they find that Robert has passed, the police are doing an investigation trying to figure out what happened. They think that it was likely due to robbery, but it was kind of like, shoot to kill type deal. So it wasn't like, anything was taken, or and they had these like really bad footage of a car, and then they had some really grainy footage at a gas station with a guy on a motorcycle. So in the car, I guess the footage was really grainy, and the person was supposedly walking with a limp, and then later the gas station was a guy on a motorcycle. And so later on, the police did figure out that even though when Sabrina was asked about if she knew anyone named John, she referred them to two other people named John that had a motorcycle. So they start to suspect that something's going on between Jonathan and Sabrina, because Jonathan, after all this is done, and remember I told you that he's very religious, he calls Jason Kelly. Okay, Jason is Kelly's boyfriend at the time, and Kelly was Sabrina's friend. Okay, so he texts Jason and is asking for forgiveness for the things that he's done. He doesn't blatantly say, like, what he's done. He's just asking for forgiveness for what he's done. And the couple found it odd, so they took the information to the police, supposedly, and then the police did a surveillance on Sabrina and Jonathan. So They were found to be sending text messages to each other, and these text messages were like, someone's following you, things like that, just kind of bizarre text messages, and things kind of seemed a little bit coded. And then also, they would send messages like, please forgive us, God, and they would be praying to each other, praying for forgiveness from God. There's a particular text message from Sabrina to Jonathan that says, that they're praying, and she's saying, please, God, forgive us for the bloodshed. So eventually, they do find enough evidence against Sabrina and Jonathan to then arrest them both. Okay, so first they arrest Jonathan, and then they eventually arrest Sabrina. So in the beginning, just because the text message had said that, this, please God forgive us for the bloodshed, that's really not substantial evidence, and they didn't have all the evidence against Sabrina at that time. So what ends up happening is Jonathan realizes that he's going to be possibly spending the rest of his life in prison for first degree murder. So he then flips on Sabrina. Now, it's said a couple of ways. Like, Sabrina denied that she had an affair and denied all this stuff. And they said that she did this possibly because she wanted to keep her status as, she didn't want her children to know anything about the swinging, and she didn't want the community to know about that, and also to know that she was having an affair. Well, obviously that, wasn't the case, and she was hiding it for more nefarious reasons, and that was because she was involved in it. So it turns out that Sabrina was the one that planned everything here, and Jonathan just fell into her trap, and it's pretty sad. So Jonathan flips on Sabrina and decides to cut a deal and testify against her. So he does, and he gets 25 years to life, but I'm sorry, 25 years and 4 months. So it would have been 25 years to life as opposed to 25 years and 4 months. So there's a possible chance that he can get out. And I did read an article that said he may be up for parole in 2028, and also Sabrina might be up for parole earlier than her sentence. So Jonathan gets sentenced, and then Sabrina is then found guilty of 4 counts. She had 6 counts against her. 2 of the poisoning counts were dropped, but the first degree murder and all the other counts were found to be guilty, and she was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison and is in prison in Corona, California. So it's just a crazy story because, these people started out like, seemed like they were like this admirable couple. Like, everybody would want to be around them, everybody would want to see them. They were both very beautiful, Robert and Sabrina, and Robert was the life of the party. Robert ends up losing his life in the story. He didn't want to stop doing the swinging, and then Sabrina, finally found someone in Jonathan that was giving her attention and all that affection that, we need sometimes from people. And, so he offered that, and then she ended up manipulating him into where he had this disdain. Sabrina must have justified all this to him. Doesn't I hope that she doesn't get out, but, you know, she murdered someone. Someone's dead because of her. And she obviously manipulated a young man into a life that he otherwise likely wouldn't have ever been involved in. So it's just an interesting story. I thought that you guys would find that interesting. And so please just leave any comments that you have for me, and, like or subscribe to my channel. It's totally up to you. If you just watch the videos